My name is Marisa Piza. I am one of the vice chairs and the press secretary of the Green Party of Suffolk County, and I want to welcome you to tonight's presentation. Thank you for being here. We have a wonderful panel put together for you, and we will have opportunities after the pre-submitted question section for you to ask any questions on the open floor. So we look forward to it. We will also be recording and sharing this in order to share this with anybody who would like to see it going forward. So we really appreciate you taking the time to join us this evening. Just so you know, this is being hosted by the Green Party of Suffolk County and the Suffolk County Libertarian Party. We have been working together for the last 2 years on social issues that we have commonalities with. And this particularly will be discussing Transgender Day of Remembrance, transgender equality issues and concerns, and of course, in support of Transgender Day of Remembrance. We have a Zoom panel put together of wonderful, impressive people. I'm going to give you a quick overview of a little bit of their background, and then they will each have some time to introduce themselves further to you. And I'm sure they'll do a much better job than I do. One participant, we have Cynthia Bryan-Kate. Cynthia is a transgender woman and intersex chimera. She's an educator, advocate, and activist on gender and sexuality diversity for over 2 decades. She's been a Green for over 10 years. She also serves as the other vice chair in the Green Party of Suffolk County, and she's helped the Green Party of Suffolk County become a leader in upholding feminism and gender diversity, as well as disability and transportation rights. She's also a member of the U.S. Green Party National Women's Caucus, Lavender Caucus, and Disability Caucus. Cynthia helped found the Long Island Transgender Day of Remembrance 20 years ago in 2002. Artie SIntef. Artie is the current chair of the Suffolk County Libertarian Party. He was born and raised on Long Island in East Moriches. He moved to Huntington in 2014, where he currently resides with his wife. He's a local activist for the environment, overdevelopment, homelessness, drug convictions, and criminal justice reform. CJ Crypto. CJ grew up in Suffolk County, Long Island, and currently resides with her wife, Sherry, in Florida. She's a motivational speaker, life coach, podcast host, and transgender woman. She believes strongly in respecting one another and finding the positives in our differences. Ashley Shade. Ashley is a member of the North Adams City Council in Massachusetts, one of our close neighboring states. She's the first transgender person to be elected to office in Berkshire County. Currently an independent, she's seeking to make life easier for small businesses in the Northern Berkshire community of around 13,000 residents. Came out publicly as transgender in 2014. So those are the very impressive individuals we have tonight on our panel. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give them each about 2 minutes to further elaborate on who they are. So whoever would like to start, I'll turn it over to you.
Who wants to go first?
I'll start.
Okay, here we go.
Go ahead.
CJ.
Oh, hi, I'm CJ Crypto. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. I've been openly transgender for about the past 2 years. I am a podcast host on Instagram, Positive Vibes, and we're all about positivity, spreading positivity to the world, trying to bring the world together in equality, trying to defeat discrimination, share peace, love, and we are the new age hippies. So we just care about everybody and just want everyone to be happy and understand each other and give each other the chance to understand each other in a world that's moving faster than any of us can really manage, but we're doing our best and we're just trying to be there for each other. And I thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of this.
Thank you so much.
Cynthia?
Actually, I was thinking maybe Artie and Ashley could go, and I could throw all my stuff at the end of that, and then we could
No
go
worries,
to the
I got it. How you doing? My name is Artie Cynthia. I'm chair of the Suffolk County Libertarian Party. I'm a local Long Islander. I've been working with Marisa and Cynthia in the Green Party for a couple of years, like about 2 years now. They reached out to me about a couple of weeks, a month, 2 months ago about this thing. And to be honest, I am a straight white male who doesn't really have, like, I support 100% trans rights and LGBTQ plus, but I didn't understand TDR. I never really heard about it very much. I grew up in a small town. So for me, this was a learning experience. So I really kind of dug through and I started reading on the history of it a little bit. And for me, it kind of opened my eyes a little bit about some of the stuff that's going on, the stuff that's happened. And I do have some trans friends who have been bullied and dealt with a lot of stuff. So for me, this is a great talking point of like just being a human being and being accepting of others. And I really appreciate Marisa and Cynthia reaching out to me and inviting me to this panel. And I'm really wanting to learn more and understand more for this, and it'll help me grow as a person. And I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Ashley?
Hi, everyone. My name is Ashley Shane. As was said, I am a city councilor from North Adams, Massachusetts. I was elected last year in 2021, and I'm the first transgender elected official in my city and in my county. I'm the former state chair of the Massachusetts Libertarian Party, and I'm currently an independent, no longer with the Libertarian Party. I've been involved in politics for a few years now. I would say I started getting involved in 2018. And I got involved because I realized that I had an ability to stand up and speak out and keep myself safe when so many people in our community don't have that ability to do so. And so I put myself out there to make sure that others can be safe and do so as well. It's really important to me to hear from more voices all the time, because it's so important that everybody's story gets told and everybody's story gets heard, because every single person matters. I ran a campaign for office on 3 ideals: compassion, education, and love. And they are the core principles that guide me through life. And they're the core principles of why I'm an activist and involved in everything that I am. So thank you for inviting me and allowing me to be a part of this tonight.
Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Cynthia Kate. Besides being one of the vice chairs of the Green Party Suffolk, let's see, pronouns are she, her, hers. I've been openly a transgender woman for about 26 years. I've been out as intersex for about 22, and as a chimera for about 6 or 7. I'll give those definitions quick because I got a bunch to cover. I hope I can do this under 2 minutes or less. Okay. And excuse my eye contact or lack thereof. I happen to be legally blind and do a lot of activism on disability as well as gender. Okay, transgender is different from cisgender. Cisgender is when the sex and gender you're expected to be at birth match what you actually consider yourself. Transgender is when they do not. When you know yourself to be some gender other than the one that was expected, whether that's the opposite of what was expected or somewhere else entirely. That's different from intersex. Intersex is being biologically in between male and female, whether through hormones, chromosomes, internal or external genitalia, or any of the other sex characteristics. Chimera, in my case, I'm intersex because I'm a chimera. That's a fun term from Greek myth, originally for a super beast combination monster from Greek mythology. But what it means is that 1 out of every 8 pregnancies starts out as multiples, but the pregnant person is sent home with 1 baby. And while there's some siblings are unfortunately miscarried, sometimes they are reabsorbed into the pregnant person, but in the other cases, the fetuses merge in order to survive, and you get a composite person born. And because I'm the product of fraternal siblings of different sexes, I am biologically in between male and female. And a lot of this is stuff that I figured out after many events in my life, including 2 distinct studies. And for me, all this stuff is the personal, is political. I became an activist because I had a very unfun, uncuddly experience of a mob of haters trying to kill me in the town I grew up in on Long Island. That made me pissed off. It made me spiritual. It made me activist. 2 years later, in 2002, I heard about the Transgender Day of Remembrance, which was started in 1999 by Gwen Smith in the Bay Area because of 2 unsolved murders of trans women, Rita Hester and Chanel Pickett, whose murder occurred on November 20th, which is the traditional original official date for TDOR. By the way, if the link isn't up there, TDOR.translivesmatter.org has everything about all of this. What TDOR is, worldwide event, which started out in practically one woman's backyard in San Francisco to address the issues of discrimination, violence, and murder being directed against transgender, intersex, non-binary, as in not identifying as men or women, and gender non-conforming people, both nationally and worldwide. It's also to commemorate lives of people killed in such violence. If you go to that website, you will find that unfortunately there are long lists of people who've been killed. And as I said before this recording started, I pray every year that I wake up and am half obsolete, where I only have to talk about the past killings. But unfortunately, I don't live in that world yet. The other point of this event is to show the solidarity of all the gender diverse people, all our friends, all our supporters, families, lovers, whoever, anyone who thinks that we have the right to live, not be killed, and express ourselves. Basically, that we get the right to express ourselves safely and to try to make a safer, better world, which is what both I am proud that two political parties have put aside any difference we've had to say these are basic no-brainers. And before we start, I'll leave with one thing about what gender expression, gender non-conforming is. Non-conforming isn't quite the same as trans. In my case, I was expected to be a boy, was raised a boy, never felt like one, figured out I'm a woman later on. Marisa, if you can see Marisa, is what I would say is gender non-conforming. I don't think you're trans, Marisa, but yeah, I put you on the spot every time. Sorry, but I always do it because this is a quick, fun story. Marissa's mother met me at a concert wearing an evening dress, saw Marisa wearing all that cool punk rock, whatever, Lady Gaga kind of stuff, pointed back at me and said, "Why the hell can't you wear what she's got on one of these nights?" That is my thing for how this all gender identity expression are things that everybody has and everybody figures out. And this event is to show that we believe that people should be safe to express the gender that is part of their identity.
Thank you very much. Well, welcome to all of you. Again, we really appreciate your time and all of the efforts and the work you have done so far and what you will continue to do. So now we're going to start with the pre-submitted questions. Some of them you'll hear, I might specifically direct them to certain members of the panel. Some might be the whole panel, but again, feel free to jump in on any of them, any of the panelists. And a reminder at the end, we will have open Q&A for either anybody from the panel, anybody who's attending. It does not have to be something that you pre-submitted. So with that, the first question submitted, and I apologize for diverting my eyes. I want to make sure I correctly read the questions that were put forth. What experiences have you had since transitioning that were positive? Now, specifically, I would direct this to CJ, Ashley, and Cynthia, but if anybody wants to jump in additionally, absolutely feel free. So that's the first question.
That's just huge. I mean, everything positive. I mean, there's so much negativity that we focus on. I think that that's the problem, is that it is hard to get bogged down by the negative, but the positive is just so uplifting. I mean, you see stuff that opens inside of you that you never understood, that then becomes crystal clear. The way you talk, the way you walk, the way you act, the way your interests line up with who you actually are, the way you enjoy going clothing shopping, the different things you enjoy eating, doing. It's just like remarkable. It's like you're born for the first time. And people look at it like, and they'll be like, well, how do you become aware of this? And it's like, the way you become aware is by exploring yourself, is by finding your authentic self, unlocking that positivity inside yourself, listening to your heart. And as silly as that sounds, some people be like, that's all it is. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, it's about following your mind, having a clear mind, following your heart and the passion that it feeds you. And, you know, surrounding yourself by your tribe, by the people that mean something to you, by the people who want the best for you, whatever that means for anybody else. You know, some of my best friends have been like incredible for me, and they just sit there and they're like, my God, they're like, you are still the same person. They're like, you still are. They're like, you're just so much happier now. You're like, you're so much easier going. Your jokes make more sense, you know. And as silly as it sounds, it's like when life starts making more sense to you, I mean, it's really just, it's just amazing. And, you know, so I'll let someone else take this. I think this is a great thing to discuss. So someone else can feel free to chime in on that. Or not.
I was going to go after Ashley, but whichever y'all want.
Yeah, go ahead, or whoever.
Ashley, do you want to speak first? You want Cynthia to speak first?
That doesn't matter to me.
Why don't you go ahead?
You'll probably be the shorter answer.
So the question was, what about transitioning is positive?
Yeah, what
the
experiences have you
positivities.
had since you transitioned that have been positive?
What are the experiences? Well, transitioning it gave me an opportunity to actually live a life. Before coming out, nobody knew I was transgender. It was a very closely guarded secret in my heart. I was a semi-professional football player. I was not your average person. So my coming out was a bit shocking for many people, but it was necessary for me to live, to be authentic to myself, because I knew that I could no longer hide who I really was. And if I didn't have the opportunity to come out and be who I am, I wouldn't be alive today. And and that's, to me, the opportunity to live. Not only the opportunity to live, but the opportunity to meet people, to reach people, to help people understand that at the end of the day, we're all human beings. We all have very similar needs and wants and desires in this world. You know, if COVID's taught us anything, whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, if COVID's taught us anything, we need each other. We are not meant as a species to be completely isolated and alone. We need other people. We all do. We all need and deserve dignity, respect, and love. And being out and being able to educate and work with people and talk to people has been an amazing impact on my life, giving me the ability to actually have a life and meet people from all over this country that I've been able to talk to and work with and help understand that trans people, we're just people. Transgender is an adjective. At the end of the day, I'm a woman just like any other woman, and that's just a word that describes who I am, but it's not who I am. Who I am is a woman, and who I am is a very loving, kind person who wants everybody to have a better life and to be happy. And coming out and transitioning, to be able to do that is the most liberating and freeing experience you'll ever have in your life. You're not truly free in this world until you can accept who you are and reveal your truth. And by setting yourself, free from that, I think Shakespeare said it best, to thine own, this above all, to thine own self be true. And it really is that important, and it really is, that's the heart. And it's so important to live life with your heart out there, because it just brings up everybody else around you as well.
Wow.
So much.
And yeah, for me, there's the holy cow, awesome activist stuff that I've encountered, and then there's just the fun, cute stuff. I'll say a few of them as quickly as I can. In terms of some of the activist stuff, I've been able to address something like 1,000 college classes, groups like this, youth groups, everything. I've gotten to talk to junior high kids who wanted somebody to actually be able to talk about this with them, and I had some come out as their own gender stuff in the middle of me trying to tell a story. At one Tdor event, I got to meet a transgender 4-year-old kid who, if anything, more about some of the stuff than half the adults in the room, including her own experience. 2 years ago, I got to talk to the UN. Well, actually, a side project of the UN, Women Included, is a thing they funded, basically a book and interview project about denouncing violence against all kinds of women. I wrote a 9-page essay that they asked me for. It's in the book of that name. And some poor lady from the French embassy had to try to keep up with my motor mouth delivery and translate that into French. So that's the more activist stuff. The more fun stuff, there's a bunch of it. Some of it's little things, like having friends actually get my name and gender and pronouns right. opening up an email or text from Marisa, having all the cute girl endearments. I love when it's like, hey, doll, you're my favorite lady over in your town, and all that. Yeah. They said, let's see, my first girlfriend letting me know, okay, you're not the only person like this I know. This was years ago when I first came out. My first girlfriend, a fellow goth woman named Lenore, got me my first dress, my first set of fishnets, my first set of makeup, and my first person. I'm like, wow. People talk about this. People are cool with this. Let's see, in 2011, a very Latin friend asked me, why haven't you gotten your quinceañera? You're out as a girl for 15 years. This is their actual, accent. I'm not trying to be, pejorative. That's the exact way my friend Wacker speaks. And I'm like, because I'm not Latin. Well, forget this. I am, you are, we're doing this now. And we took over a karaoke bar, turned it into the pinkest thing on the earth. I wore the shortest, sheerest, pinkest thing I'll probably ever get a chance to wear unless Marisa can hook me up with something. I proved I can dance for 7 hours in 4-inch platform heels. And I admit it, I love getting cute, girly things that look pretty on me. I hope people love the Reporter Barbie sweater that the lady who reads me weird books about history got me for my birthday a couple months back.
Awesome. Well, thank you all very much. I mean, it's really great to hear how it was so easy for you all to say positive things that you've experienced since you really been able to be exactly who you are. So thank you for your courage. And
Can I jump in real quick when you're done?
absolutely.
So, listen, I know I'm not trans and I can't have a positive experience. I just want to say, I hate to say it, I shouldn't have to say this. I'm proud of you guys. I am. I shouldn't have to, because it should be normal. This should be accepting. This should be an easy thing that we shouldn't make a big deal about. Like, you coming out and you experiencing it should be a normal, everyday thing for everybody that we shouldn't have to, make it it should be positive all the time. It really should be. There shouldn't be, a big deal about it. This should be a normal, everyday occurrence that when you come out and you're trans or you're gay or whatever you want to be, that should be accepting for human beings. You're a good person, easy, but you guys have been through a lot of bullying and crap, but I'm proud of you guys for everything you guys have done, and and I hope it gets easier for you guys. I really do want this to be such an easy thing that everybody accepts it in the long run. You guys are amazing, all of you.
Well said. I completely agree. Thank you all so much for sharing your stories. Moving on to the second pre-submitted question. Now this one, I'm going to ask this to Artie, but again, if anyone else wants to jump in afterwards, definitely feel free. What is one thing that you would say to people who are critical of the transgender community?
Honestly, it's just something I've dealt with. I hate to say it. This is awful, but we've all dealt with this. You guys have dealt with it more than I have, especially when you come out. You get a lot of crap from it. I hate to say it. You're going to get people who don't understand it, people who are fearful of it. You're fearful, or you don't understand something, you kind of fear it. It's sad. What I try to do is approach it as a talking point. I want to listen. The best way to really get somebody is really to listen to them. Talk to them. Hey, why is somebody coming out as trans affecting you? Does it affect you personally? And honestly, it shouldn't. I don't personally care what anybody does with their personal lives. Don't hurt people. Don't harm people. Don't share issues on anybody. But you should be able to be who you are. Why is it an issue? And if you open that conversation up with somebody and talk to them and say, hey, why, what about this bothers you? And get them to talk and actually listen. Don't go combative. Be a listener. You open your ears up and you listen to the way maybe they learn from social media. Maybe they learn from their parents. It's something they don't understand. Personally, I didn't understand it until probably I was in my 30s. I'm 42 years years old now. I wasn't around any person who was trans that I personally knew that was open about it. Maybe I was, but they weren't open. And for me, it was an understanding thing. I needed to ask questions, which is a hard thing to do. As a person who's a straight male, how do you approach a woman or a male who's trans and say, hey, I have questions. Are you willing to talk about this? Because I want to learn. And I don't want to be that simpleton who doesn't know and is on social media that trans is bad. I'm sorry, it's not. It's who you are, and that's amazing. I don't really, like I said, you can be trans, you can be gay. I'm great. That's awesome. I'm easy, but I didn't understand. And I had some trans friends in the past, and I asked them straight up, hey, on a private, on a literally one-on-one, hey, would it be okay if I asked you some questions? And I learned a lot directly from them by being open to them and listening to them. And I brought what I learned from those people that I talked to people I were criticizing. And when they criticize it, I'm like, hey, have you ever met a trans person and actually talked to a trans person before? And their response 100% is no. Because they've never actually interacted with a trans person before, so they don't understand it. And understanding is, if you don't understand something, you fear something. And you kind of get worried that you don't know, and you hear social media saying, trans is turning our kids gay, and it's ridiculous. Come on. So if you listen and talk and have an open conversation and don't be combative, I think it's a great way to get somebody to open up a little bit. It really does seem to work for me. I hope that answers the question. I hope it kind of works for you guys a little bit.
Absolutely. Thank you. Anybody else want to?
I can say that if somebody feels in any way that they don't get the trans community or are trying to be critical on anything, my question is this: what about your own issues with gender identity, gender expression? It happens to cisgender people too. The cisgender people I'm around, I do have male friends. There are guys I'm friends with, but most of my friends are either women or were expected to be women at some point. And I've run across so many, particularly cisgender women, who come up to me and say, maybe you could understand this because you're trans, but I don't always feel 100% like a girly girl all the time. Sometimes I'm not even sure if I feel exactly like a woman, but I'm not trans. And this is what I hear all the time. And then the next question is always, I'm generalizing, but most of the time I've gotten, is there something the matter with me because I feel this way sometimes? And I have two answers for everyone who's ever asked me this. One, no, there's nothing wrong. Gender is a slippery thing that really doesn't make sense to anybody. Really, you just live how you feel as long as you're not hurting anyone who doesn't want you to have kinky fun with them. The other part is not only is there nothing wrong with y'all who are cis and feel that you're not as girly as people expect you to be. If there was anything wrong, take a number to that long imaginary line of other ladies who are already got a higher number up in line to ask me the same darn question.
Well said.
Yep.
Anybody else in the panel?
Basically, gender is an expression.
Yes.
Whether you're cis or trans, there's stuff you wear, there's stuff you do. I have a cis woman friend who broke up with a jerk boyfriend who was saying that, oh, she couldn't wear makeup around him. She couldn't wear heels. Meanwhile, she's a pageant diva who wins pageants. And I'm like, your boyfriend was a jerk. He didn't get your gender expression and he was stepping on it. And she's like, that's gender expression? Yes, it is.
Yep.
Well said. Absolutely.
Anybody else want to jump in there?
I think at the end of the day, what it comes down to is people are afraid of what they don't understand, and it makes them question themselves. So to those people, just remember, we're all human beings. And at the end of the day, every human being on this planet should have the right to be who they are and love who they love, so long as they aren't hurting another person. And it's not your right to interfere in their lives and try to hurt them. It's really important for people who don't understand to actually just meet somebody and talk to them on a human level. That human connection is so important to the education and helping people understand about our community. And it's really important that that we allow people to be who they are. And it's really important that people who don't understand, whether it's the trans community, another LGBTQ plus community, or even somebody from a different race or religion or whatever it is that makes us different, don't immediately judge them for being different. Get to know them as a human being, because you're going to find that deep inside, you're going to have so much more in common with them than not. And while the differences seem like such a big deal, at the end of the day, they're minor compared to who we are as human beings.
Agreed.
Very well said, all of you. Thank you. Thank you for your insight. Thank you all for your responses. Okay, the next one. Now, this is a full panel question, whoever would like to answer and jump in. What would you say to people who think that certain political views and certain identities are expected to go hand in hand? And that's a good one.
Ashley's laughing. Please, Ashley, you should open up on this.
Yeah, let's go with that. Here's the deal. What I believe in at the core of who I am has nothing to do with a political party, because let's face it, all of the political parties have self-interest, have corruption, have idiots. There are stupid people in all of the political parties. There's good people too, don't get me wrong. But political parties just serve a singular purpose. Their goal is to try to help people get elected. And honestly, right now, the major political parties' goals are to take as much money as possible and laugh at you while they do it. Okay, so let's get that off at first. You know, they just want all the money and power, and they want to keep everybody else out. It's really important that your core principles that guide you through life as a human being are part of how you vote, and that should not be straight up party. You need to look at candidates as who they are as people, as individuals, as what they're running on, as what their platform is, as what their actions and character show you who they are as human beings. Do not just trust a political party because they're a political party and you're supposed to vote this way or that way. That's all garbage. What really matters is that you vote for an individual that you believe in. I will never, ever cast a vote for someone that I don't feel shares my values as a human being. And if you do, you're just making the problem worse. You're making it more difficult to get good people into office. So that's where I'm going to start with.
Love it.
For me, I hear the false dichotomy in this country from people outside my party who tell me, oh, you're only blue or red, that's all. Hello, there's a rainbow, and I'm proud to be a green, because the Green Party actually upholds the rainbow of gender identity and expression. It's one of the reasons I joined the Green Party, for 3 reasons. My environmentalism. I live near Brookhaven National Lab, and we don't always trust the water because they dumped tritium like 20-something years ago into the Titanic. I wanted to be part of a party that cares about the environment. I wanted to be part of a party that wasn't just blue or red, and one that affirms my gender and sexuality and other such things. We have the false dichotomy that all Democrats uphold trans rights and that all Republicans oppose it. No, I found good and bad in each of those. And then, wait a second, in 2008, I'm like, wait a second, there's another political party that's not part of that? And y'all actually have a platform that actually says, I get to be a woman and I get to be a trans woman and an intersex-bodied trans woman? Holy crap, sign me up. And I've been a Green since 2009, after a whole lifetime since turning 18 of saying, forget the whole system. I still say, forget the 2-party system. And I'm glad to be part of a party that actually upholds where I am.
Thank you so much, CJ.
Awesome. Can you repeat the question?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
A lot of good points were made there, and I just wanted to make sure I address it from my best standpoint.
There really are a lot of great points. The question submitted was, what would you say to people who think that certain political views and certain identities are expected to go hand in hand?
Oh, right. And that's exactly right. It's just like Ashley said before, it's just you have to find the right person that suits what you're looking for personally. Because especially when you do identify and you do find your authentic self and you figure out what those needs and wants are for you, then it's important that you find someone that's going to represent you right. It's important that we find the person that's going to suit us, not from just that so-called political standpoint, but from the values that we seek in the people that we want to support us, that we want to represent us, so that we know that we are getting the most out of our vote, because our voices need to be heard, not just politically, but personally and emotionally and all of that. And it's a different world. And it's just like Cynthia was saying with the Green Party, it's like, and that's another party that we need to look into, we need to get behind, and we need to support if the situation is right for the individual. So I won't get too much into that. I think there were a lot of good points made, but I absolutely do agree with Ashley in saying that you have to find the right political party, the right individual to represent you for every need that you want. And you can't think about anybody else in that situation. You have to, just as when we find ourselves authentically, we have to honor those things inside of us that tell us where we want to go and who we want to believe in, and what are the rights and those things that we do hold closest to us and do find the most important to believe in and follow through with.
Well said. Artie? No comment? All right. All right. So we're going to...
Hold on, real quick. I forgot to unmute myself. I just said, this is something I cannot really, I said it's good.
I know you're a chair of a party, but you
can't judge a book by its cover, plain and simple. I know people who are trans, who are gay, and LGBTQ plus. They are Dems. I have some who are Republicans, some are independents. Honestly, stop generalizing people.
Yes.
Plain and simple.
Yeah.
I don't care if you're gay. If you're gay, it doesn't mean you're a Democrat. I'm sorry, it doesn't.
Right.
It's ridiculous to how we generalize, stereotype, and it's awful. Like me, look at me. I'm going to throw this out there. I'm a white male. I love guns. I hate taxes. So honestly, what is everybody going to say? I'm a Trump supporter.
Yep, you're a Republican.
I am a Republican. Guess what? No, I am not. I am actually a registered libertarian. I'm sorry, I hate to say it, registered independent. But I am the chair of the Libertarian Party, because we're losing our ballot status. It's a whole different story. But I believe in individual rights, individual peace, make our own choices. And I hate the fact that we generalize and we put people in categories. It's stupid. Yep. I don't care. It's absolutely insane that we categorize people. And we need to stop it. Stop putting people in groups. It needs to end.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Societal problem for sure.
Yep.
Well, thank you for all of you. Excellent feedback and excellent viewpoints and excellent, I think, good points for people to really sit with and take. And, you all bring back to the fact that we're all humans. And I think that's really kind of like the underlying theme of what we've heard so far this evening. And it's just refreshing, because I think if the world sat with that a little bit, we'd see so many different problems that are, that don't need to exist would melt away. And I hope for the day that happens. I have faith in it. It's getting better in some ways. And I always believe that we can continue to do the work we all do, however we do it, whyever we do it, to remember at the end of the day, we're all people. So with that, thank you very much for that one. The next question submitted is going to be directed to the full panel, whoever would like to step in and respond. The question is, what is one suggestion you have in the work that you do to try to get people to work together, whether they are similar or have differences from you?
I said a bit earlier how we all have a gender of some kind, even people who identify as agender, that they don't have a specific gender, still live in a world that categorizes y'all and says, this is based on whatever your genitals look like, we'll try categorizing this way. And in the end, it comes down to what do you express how you feel. And everybody has that, as I said, everybody, including the cis people, all have some way that you express yourself, what you wear, what you do, how you move your body, what stuff you like. And that's why, and we all live in a messed up world where people are still getting penalized because of arbitrary stereotypes on gender. I'm sad that people are still getting murdered because haters hate their gender. I'm sad to live in a world where we still have a pay gap where people who live as women are getting paid less than people who live as men, that we still have things like rape culture, all that. And these are issues that affect everybody of every single gender. People are equally at risk for violence, rape, and other murder and other things. People are equally capable of expressing themselves and enjoying the world. So instead of saying, oh, you're cis and you're trans and y'all got nothing in common. No, we all live on this messed up planet and we're working to try to make it more of a better place. I want to live to see the day when all the Bob Ross happy fluffy clouds are how everybody sees the world, because the violence and rape and hate and murder are stopped. I want all the haters to take up knitting and macrame, so I only have to talk about all the bad stuff in the past one of these days.
Love it.
And what I'll say about as far as what we were talking about originally was is just educating people. And something that Artie had said before was, how do you approach a trans person? And I think a lot of the people who do find their authentic self are willing to discuss it openly. I know I am, and that's why I started my podcast, where it welcomes everyone from all walks of life, straight, gay, black, white, purple, it doesn't matter. And I say that purple word like a lot because it's like the weirdo that you see. And I say the weirdo word also because when someone finds you weird, it means that you're unique. You've shown them something that they've never seen before. And how awesome is that? You've given them something to see, you've given them something to have questions about. And so if you're the one giving them questions, then you're the one who's going to provide the answers, as many as you want. But just education and understanding is really what it simply comes down to. And when I talk to people, whether it's on the podcast, whether it's online, whether it's in chat rooms, which is huge. It's like you go into any trans chat room and there are a billion people there who just want to tell you the story. And because they want to share the love, they want to they want to close the gap between these, as Artie said before, as these groups, as we sit there and we say, we don't want to label anymore, but we are further segregating each other. It's like, there is no, there shouldn't be any purple or blue. There should just be a nice, delicious rainbow in the middle that we can all just take a scoop of and enjoy life and not worry about putting everyone in these little boxes, but also allowing ourselves to ask the questions and not to be afraid to ask transgender or gay people or straight people, questions. I've had a lot of people ask me when I was first coming out, people were like, I always thought that you were gay. And I was like, oh, well, it would have been nice if you would have told me that. And I said, well, no, I said, I'm not gay. I said, but what the funny thing is that if you look at it, I kind of am gay because I am a gay woman. I love my wife, and Marisa, my wife very well. And, so it's like, yeah, so I guess you're right. I am a gay woman and who's transitioning and who's been very happy to find herself.
I'm proud to be weird. I will tell people any story or answer any question about me. And I have a beauty pageant sash from my quinceanera. This is mayoress of TMI City. Marisa knows that about me right now.
That's awesome.
TJ, do me a favor. In the chat, could you please put up your link to your podcast?
Yes.
I would love to have the chat come up, and when I post this, I'd love to put your chat up so maybe some other people who see this can listen in and understand a little more.
Definitely.
We need people to listen, and that's the key point.
Absolutely.
Ooh, where did it go? Uh-oh, where did it go?
Technology. Well, CJ is finding the chat because I don't know where it is either, so I am no help to you whatsoever.
I can still hear you, honey.
All right, awesome. So it matters. Does anybody else from the panel want to say anything on that topic specifically before we head on to the next one?
Sure. What it comes down to at the end of the day is understanding that I don't have to agree with another person to treat them like a human being. We can have differences of ideas, we can have differences of religion, of philosophy. Where I will say I cannot work with you is if you question my own humanity. I am a human being, and if you try to question my dignity as a human being, we have a huge problem. But so long as you're not trying to hurt me as a human being, I'm willing to talk to you, listen to you, work with you. I want to hear your voice. I want to help you understand. If you have questions, I want to help answer them. I want to help you get the resources. It's really important that we remember, just because we disagree with somebody on an issue, at the end of the day, we still have work to do. And when we dehumanize people because we disagree with them, we get dehumanized ourselves as well. And it's a vicious cycle, and it creates hatred and tension. And that's not the world I want to live in. I want to live in a world where I can still love somebody who I disagree with, because at the end of the day, I'm a human being and you're a human being, and we need to survive and work together on this planet. And that's kind of the mindset we need to get into if we really want to make a difference and make positive changes for everybody on this planet. If we come from a place of anger, hatred, rage, and immediately dismiss people who disagree with us, we'll never learn anything new, and we'll never be able to bring them over to our side to educate them. You can't educate somebody who's angry. You have to talk to them. You have to be human with them. So that's a really important aspect of this, is to remember that we're all human beings at the end of the day. And we need to all treat each other with dignity and respect.
Excellent points.
Marisa, can you still see me? My phone kind of nearly died on me.
Yes, we can see you. You're
Good.
good. Mike. You want to add anything?
No, I think everybody covered that one wonderfully.
Okay, excellent.
If
Well,
I can
thank
just
you
add
all.
one thing, I put it in the terms that what you were trying to express, I say it as your freedom to be yourself ends where it infringes on somebody else's. And if you can't respect that, then you're treating you're assigning yourself privileges that you're not entitled to.
Very well said, Harry.
Absolutely.
Very true. That's why I told Harry earlier, when we get to the open Q&A closing thoughts, I'm like, Harry, you shine there, because he has a great way of taking things that we're all trying to say and we have said, and he sums it up so nicely. So very well said. And you're right. Thank you for that. All right. I'm going to move on to the next question that was submitted. What successes have come from Transgender Day of Remembrance? I know we touched upon a few, but any specific successes? Positive, looking at the positive here.
I can think of a few things. First of all, is that it's made people more aware of the humanity of trans and gender nonconforming people anywhere on the gender spectrum. People who, to go back to the question about people who are in any way critical of the trans community, there are people whom I've heard from who started out there and realized, wait a second, oh my God, people are killing people? This is messed, and I should be better on it. And there's been a lot of education, a lot of advocacy. There are a lot of people who have worked to become more understanding because they don't want to contribute to a system of misery and death based on hatred and misunderstanding. There have been a lot of people who've come out publicly because of the issues that have come up. I mean, I became an activist because people tried to kill me, and my reaction was, no way, I'm not letting this happen ever again to me or anybody else. I was in a sweaty ball in my aunt's floor the night that happened, and I said to myself, forget this ever happening again. If nobody else is going to do the whole Wonder Woman comic book thing I saw as a kid in the comics, I guess it's my job. And I see how many other people have taken this on as theirs as well. Some of the legislative successes we have had may have come from people wanting this to be a better situation. We actually banned the panic defense in New York State in 2019, I think it was, which for people who don't know what that is, that's when a hater kills a person. A hate crime is different from a standard crime because it's done out of a desire to spread a message of hate and fear to a minority. regardless of what that minority actually is, but based on the perceptions of the perpetrators. And some perpetrators have been known to say, oh, I didn't understand what they were and I was so scared I killed them. Well, that's illegal now. Enough people said, screw that, that it's actually been banned in New York and a bunch of other places. So we've had legislative successes that are moving forward. There are still legislative victories we need to get, but I can say in New York, it's illegal to discriminate against trans or any gendered person based on your gender. And people come up to me all the time and say, I want to learn more about this so that people are less likely to be violent and stupid toward you or anybody else. And I count all that as victories. And as I said, I met the mother of a 4-year-old trans girl and that trans girl at a day of remembrance. So while we were gathered for the sad occasion of having to read names and discuss people who'd been murdered by haters, I was in the presence of a 4-year-old girl who knows that she's a girl, told her mommy that she's a girl, and a mommy who said, well, I thought you were a boy, but if you're a girl and you really feel that way, I'm going to treat you like the girl you are. And seeing that in the world, that gives me hope that this stuff will keep getting better.
Thank you so much. Anybody else on the panel?
Sure. I've been involved in Trans Day of Remembrance events for the past few years now, organizing a couple coming up soon locally. And I absolutely hate it. I hate Transgender Day of Remembrance. But it is so important that it's done because it does two really important things. The first thing it does is it gives us an opportunity to educate and bring awareness to the community, about what's happening to us. That there are people out there who want us to die just because we exist. What kind of world is that where you want somebody to die just because they exist? It doesn't make sense. But the second, and probably just as important reason that TDOR is so important, we owe it to the other members of our community to honor them, to say their names, to make sure that they are not forgotten. They didn't deserve what happened to them. And we as a community have to come together. We as human beings have to come together and say, one, enough is enough. And two, these people lost their lives to this senseless violence. They deserve to be remembered and honored. And that's why the day is so important. I hate doing it. It's the worst because every year that I've done it, the murder rate has gone up and up and up. And every year I'm reading more and more names. And it kills me inside because I wish I could just do something, anything, to keep all these people safe, to keep them from being murdered. But I can't do it alone. I can't be the only one out there. We all have to do it together. And we do it by having these days, by talking to people, by educating, by raising awareness, and most importantly, by honoring those that we've lost. I've lost friends who I've known personally to the senseless violence. And it's so important that we remember them and we stand up for them and we say no more. We're not going to let anybody else get killed on our watch. And every year we're going to fight back against that.
One person murdered is too many. When I look at the list that's on the Trans Lives Matter site I gave the URL for at the beginning of this, I tell people who ask me how many are being killed, I'll say much too many. I'm not happy that we have to have TDOR. I wish we just could have the Trans Day of Visibility and no more murders. I pray every year for that partial obsolescence. I keep doing the work I do in the hopes that things will keep getting better. I don't know whether it's that more people are getting, I don't know whether it's that the murder rates have gone up or the reporting rates have gone up, but one is too damn many. And I'm not happy to have to keep spending my November basically having to educate people about this, but I'll keep doing it. And I'm glad the education is going out there. I'm just not happy for the need for it. I would rather simply have people be at least willing to realize, don't kill each other. That's a simple lesson. I'm hoping more people are starting to get it.
I just hope eventually that the Trans Day of Remembrance is something in the past. And it's just something more about trans, like being out in the open is something, but like we shouldn't have to go through this. I hate to say it, you guys should never have to deal with this. And I hope it's something that we can put behind us eventually. We still want to remember the past, but we need to grow. And this is something that we need to have as a turn into like a trans day of, I can think visibility, as Cynthia said, or openness, and the remembrance part needs to come to an end. It's awful, and I hate seeing it.
And that really is it. It's like, you just want it to be gone. And it's part of just like any war. There's always casualties. And the trailblazers are the ones who pay the biggest price and make the biggest sacrifice. But they also make the biggest difference because they are so brave, and they're braver than any of us could ever be, because there's a more clear and safe path for us now. But it's because of those before us who didn't question anything and just pushed forward because they knew they had discovered something incredible in this world, and said, I don't care how hard it's going to get or how dark it's going to get or how many friends I'm going to lose or how many fights I'm going to have to make. I'm going to do this because this is something that's important, and it lit something up inside of them. And so it's like it's a day that we hope will take after its name and just be something that we remember and we don't have to keep doing. But at the end of the day, it's something just like, and I don't want to put it on that grand scale, but it is a Memorial Day for us, to where we remember the soldiers that fought for us and have battled for our rights in this world. So
It is a grand scale, though. This is a worldwide
absolutely.
issue.
Oh, absolutely.
Problem.
But it should
Oh,
be.
absolutely, Cynthia. I'm not downplaying that at all. Yeah.
No, I never said you were. I'm saying for audience members who see this later and may not get that.
Right.
I wasn't saying anything on you, dear. I'm saying that because I'm used to being on events where people ask me to say anything about this in the first place, but this is that big a deal. I want people to stop getting killed. I don't like having to show up at what's essentially a funeral for murdered people every year. I want, as I said before, to wake up and find out, oh, maybe once a year you'll have to tell people when things are stupid. Rest of the year, glitter and sushi for everybody. But right now, we're still addressing a worldwide problem of violence and murder, and we have to say no to that climate of badness. And I'm glad people say no. I'm glad more are saying no.
Yeah,
absolutely. I'm going to actually piggyback the next question, which is on the same vein of what we're talking about, to you all. Continuing that thought, the question says, what could we do in a dialogue with somebody who is staunchly against discussing the topic to get them to listen? Not necessarily looking to change their mind or have them agree, but just to get them to listen in your experience. So for any of you who've actually been in that situation, what have you done that's worked to get somebody who is staunchly, I don't understand it, and very set in their ways, to just listen?
can I jump in? I hate that you said. I know Ashley and CJ said they have a lot to talk about, but from my perspective of a straight male, listen to them, have an open dialogue. This is something that they're not used to. Don't be combative. Open up that dialogue and explain to them and talk to them as a human being of what you're going through and who you are. Let them get to know you personally. I'm gonna give a quick thing real quick. I had a friend come over, a friend of a friend, about a couple of years ago, and I didn't know she was trans at the time. She's a beautiful young woman. She comes over, we got friendly, we were all really cool, we had a great time. I got to meet her, she started coming over more and more. And my wife reached out to me, goes, she's trans, right? I'm like, oh, really? I had no idea. That's awesome. I didn't care. But like for me, it was like she literally was like next to me. It's like we get around. She's like, I'm your third wife. I'm like, cool. Like I'm so cool. I'm like easy, but like, yeah, I don't care. But a lot of people aren't like that. But if you have to listen to them, let them talk. I hate to say it, as soon as somebody says something that's negative, we get that combative stage. We all do it no matter what we are. We're fighting for environmental, we're fighting for trans, we're fighting for political issues. We turn combative. Don't. Open that conversation up. Hey, what does being trans hurt you? Does it affect you personally if your friend is trans? Honestly, no. It doesn't affect me personally if my friend is trans. I'm going to support them for who they are as a person. I don't care. I'm going to do whatever I can to help them. But like personally, it doesn't affect me. If you don't want to date a trans person, don't date a trans person. That's fine. It's just something that's not for you. But like what is the reason being against it if it doesn't affect you personally? So open that dialogue up, and this is where we need to talk to people. And don't be combative, because we all get on the defensive, and I hate to say it, we all do with everything we talk about. I'm very politically involved. I fight for everything locally, and I do personally get defensive with certain things, but I have to control myself. But you open that dialogue, don't get defensive, and just let them talk. Let them explain how they feel, and talk to them about how you are, and explain that you're just a person. You're just a human being.
I have a story that happened when I lived in Michigan. As you'll know, I'm a trans woman. My last ex-girlfriend is also a trans woman. We found out that a particular right-wing mega church in a town in Michigan was hosting a so-called conversion therapy event put on by an anti-gay national religious group. And yeah, we picketed along with a bunch of lesbian, gay, and bi activists. On the Saturday, but Rain and I attended the actual church on the Sunday. And okay, the not fun part was the guy who'd arranged for that heinous event went completely off on us. The good part, though, was we asked to speak to the pastor himself. Like, forget you. We want the boss of this whole darn church. And he had us come into his office, and I told my story of what it was like to have people trying to kill me when I first really was coming out. Rain told him about what it was like to be driven away from a Sunday school by bigoted church leaders in her hometown in another state. And this is what he said to us. The pastor points at me and says, I think we got something in the book in my office. It says, "Thou shalt not kill." Points at my ex, back when we were still girlfriends. And I have a lesson in the book for you too. Love thy neighbor. Where's that book? Where's that book? And he's pretending to hunt around his office like he's never heard of the Bible. Picks it up, slaps it down on the table, tells us, hurt people hurt people. It was horrible that you had to run for your life, and horrible that you had to miss out on a fun Sunday school when you were a kid. And this guy did not know what lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transgender was until we started talking to him in his office. And we spent half an afternoon with him, and that church got a lot better on this. And if I still lived in my old apartment in Michigan, I'd still be getting Christmas and Easter cards from the man.
It's great to hear. It's so nice to hear people who are people, kind of going back to the theme that we have, people who are human beings. And that's just it's so refreshing to hear that, because that lets you know it is out there and it is possible. So thank you for sharing that story. So some of the questions have been touched upon, since you all have shared wonderful experiences and stories and things that you've been through. So I won't duplicate anything that's already been touched upon, but there are two more individual questions that I think are really important that have not been asked yet. The first one is, what are the questions you suggest we ask someone when we become aware they are a transgender person?
So what are some of the questions you should ask a transgender person?
If you say that you learn that somebody's transgender and you want to learn more, but you don't know how to start the conversation, maybe it's not someone you know well, maybe you're not comfortable asking questions, what do you recommend somebody, how do they start that conversation? It's the
Yeah,
best
so-
advice you can give somebody.
Go ahead, Ashley. Were you going to say something?
I think there's two ways of approaching it. I think the first is to say, hi, I'd like to learn more about what your experience is like. Would you be willing to teach me, or can you share resources with me so I can learn? You got to be willing to do part of the job yourself. Don't just rely on trans people to always tell their stories and give you all the information, because there's stuff each of us don't even know all of, right? So you got to be willing to do the research yourself too. But it's okay to say, I would like to ask you some questions if you're comfortable with that. And if not, where can I find the resources so I can learn? And by putting those two things together, a transgender person's going to be like, oh my God, yes, this is what we're looking for. Because sometimes people will ask questions that are inappropriate, or they'll ask questions in a very inappropriate way, and or just an inappropriate environment. I wouldn't ask anybody else walking down the street what their genitals were, but people think it's okay and acceptable to ask a transgender person, what genitals do you have? Well, quite frankly, unless we're having relations, it's none of your business. It's just not any of your business. So, it's important to understand that every individual person is going to react differently to these questions. But if you come at it from a genuine perspective of wanting to learn, and you state that you're also willing to do some research to learn yourself, you're going to get an extremely positive reaction 99% of the time.
Absolutely.
Well said.
And that's the thing. It's like, the questions come from, the person. And like Ashley said, it's, you have to be respectful about it. It has to suit the environment. It can't just be, you have to build to things to even just try to get to, even if you just try to get to know a transgender person, even if you don't know any others and it's the first person you know, then just try to get to know them as a friend. And you'll be surprised at what you can find out just from a normal conversation. And I don't even say normal conversation, just general conversation, because it's not like we just spit out facts like a computer, or like you can Google, hey CJ, just create a link online called hey CJ, but it's like, just as willing as we are to share information, there are things that we do have private. It's like a lot of people think I'm further along my transition than I am. And some people get mad at me about that, and other people are more respectful about it. But I'm always open and willing to give people information, because I was hiding for about 5 years, and in that time I was the person asking the questions. I was the person in the chat room and asking everybody and finding out and finding all these incredible people and all these friends on Facebook that were answering questions from me, to where I became the educator because of that. And that's why I started my podcast, to share the information. But ultimately, just to circle back around to the question, when asking, transgender appeal questions, it's like, just know the person you're talking to, respect them as a human being, and, ask what you feel is comfortable for the situation. And to get back to what Ashley said, and just be respectful, be respectful and understand that we are all human, and that, yes, we will help you, but we're not the encyclopedia transgender. I mean, none of us have figured all this out yet. And it's like, but we're all here willing, and, and so that's it. Respect, treat each other like humans, respect each other, love each other, and just share what you feel comfortable with sharing, but respect the person that you're speaking with. And if you're not going to tell me if you've still got your penis, then don't ask me if I still got mine.
I love it.
My ex actually shut that question down with somebody. A well-meaning friend asked her about anything with her genital stuff, and she only gave any answer after first asking him, and by the way, what do your genitals look like this time of night? And if you are willing to ask me this, I get to ask you that. And yeah, this is the thing. I usually recommend asking 2 starter questions. One, what name does ask the person, what name do they want you to call them? The other, what pronouns do they want you to call them? And from there, anything that you feel is appropriate asking somebody. Don't expect every trans person to be as outspoken on this as I am. Later tonight, I'm actually going to be on Worldwide Radio on the In Goth We Trust radio show, and we will be we've been spending the weeks surrounding Tdor talking about how this impacts particularly transgender people in the goth community. But just because I do this stuff worldwide doesn't mean every other trans or gender diverse person does. Assume that people will be at whatever level of comfort they're at, and hopefully they can communicate that, and hopefully you can understand that. And if you do screw up a pronoun or something, I feel that if you screw up my pronouns, my job is to say, you messed up my pronouns, then your job is to say sorry and not do it again. And some people do this out of just not knowing things like that. I live as a woman, but because of the way I look and the sound of my voice and some of just the way my body moves, people somehow seem to think I'm a guy even when I'm wearing a dress. I'll give a quick funny thing. I do a lot of Dungeons and Dragons gaming. I was at a pickup game where this poor, totally unaware of the trans community guy who was just out of high school kept calling me guy pronouns, even though I show up as Cynthia. I'm playing a dwarf named Ardelia. I finally just killed the whole pronoun mix up by saying the lady dwarf will heal everybody in the group who calls her a girl, and will share the meat from the monster she killed with everybody who calls her a lady.
I love your analogies.
I love
Love
that.
them.
I'm gonna jump in real quick on the really fast with all the questions, but like I'm the guy who's asking questions. I am that cis male. I'm the one who's actually talked to trans and said, "Hey, I don't understand this." So for me, I'm not gonna be dumb. I'm not gonna ask questions that are gonna be ridiculous. I'm not gonna talk about your genitalia. I don't care. I'm gonna talk about. I might ask why or when did you feel this? When did you first think that you were a different gender? And I'm gonna ask questions like that because I want to understand more. For me, that was an understanding of like learning from people who went through this and like, oh, so you were like, 10 years old or 15 years old and you thought you were a female or a male. And like for me, that was like, wow, I never really thought about anything like that. And for me, that's like a learning experience. And I'm the guy who's asking the questions. And I make sure that, yes, I do screw up pronouns occasionally. I'll admit that. But I'm the first person to say, listen, I'm sorry. What is the proper pronoun that you'd like to use? And what name would prefer? And I understand that. I'm easy with that. But yeah, I'm gonna make mistakes. And people like me who may not have gone through that and experienced all this stuff, that we are gonna make mistakes. And I hope you guys are understanding that we are going to apologize. Hopefully, all of us will. But teach us. Tell us, hey, listen, I prefer to go by they or I go by she or whatever you go by pronouns. Educate us. And people like me need to know that, like we do make mistakes and we want to learn more. And not everybody's like that, though. You're going to find people who don't care. But for somebody like me and a lot of us out there, we want to learn more. And just be open with us. Hey, I prefer you call me they or she or he. And I'm cool with that. Tell me, and I'll be open with you, and we could have that nice common conversation.
Absolutely. And we're going to seg into open floor questions. But as we do, I just wanted to say to all the points you just made, I'm a cis female. I get called sir a lot. It happens a lot. Care less. But as somebody, I have a very different journey. But as somebody who has always known who I was, and it maybe is not what society thought I expected me to be, shall we say, I just admire who you each are and the amazing people you are and the amazing work that you do. Because although my journey is quite different, I do know what it's like to get a lot of questions. I do know what it's like for people to not understand. I get a lot of the questions, why do you do this? How old were you when? I get a lot of that. Are you worried you won't find a job? Are you worried X, Y, and Z? I've gotten a lot of that my whole life. And, some people, to your point, some people do it to be facetious. Some people really just want to learn. Oh, CJ had a technical issue. She just messaged me. I just got all right. She said, thank you so much. She's having a technical issue. She's going to try to get back on. So just a heads up. I just got that.
And yeah, Marissa, that's what I said at the beginning, though, that gender nonconforming is not necessarily the same as trans. There are probably enough people who are both. But in your case, you're not a trans woman like me, but you definitely go through a lot of the same stuff I do with all of this. And remember the story I said about meeting your mom.
Exactly. And that's why I appreciate the journey you're all on. Although I may not personally relate to the specific journey, I understand the journey idea in general very much so. And speaking only for myself, I would not change a thing. And thank goodness none of you would either. You're all wonderful humans and the best version of yourselves. So with that, we're going to open it to the floor for Q&A from anybody who wants to ask a question. There were some coming through the chat. I'm going to actually start with Harry, who had submitted a question to the chat. If you want to start off.
Can you please read the things in the chat, as I'm legally blind and using an iPhone? There's no way on earth I'd know what's in the chat.
Or what we're going to do is whoever asked it, whether they're asking something that was in the chat or asking something that they just want to ask, they'll read the question to you so you know what you're getting for sure. Absolutely.
I have asked everybody to unmute, so if they want to ask a question, they have free roam right now. I think
And
Harry
not
had
to
a question.
Did you want to start?
Well, I didn't have so much a question as Cynthia had mentioned something about a list of people had been killed or suicided for being trans in this year, and I didn't hear anything about the actual list, and I was wondering if that was the thing that we were planning on doing, or something that we oops, we forgot to do.
Cynthia's on the website.
That's fine. We did not have time to read all the names of people killed this year alone, and even time that we have, especially when we've had so many wonderful questions.
Mm-hmm.
No, I recommend that everybody, and Marisa, can you throw this link out to everywhere that you do your social media things? tdor.translivesmatter.info is the main American website for TDOR stuff, and it has the entire list for this year, both American and worldwide cases, and has all the other years that they have any archives on, though there are some years before they have that have been covered in some other places, and I have to see if any of those sites are still around. But the site I just mentioned, I think everybody should know about the site, and everybody who can handle the graphic detail of the unfortunate and unnecessary murders of the people on that list should read this, so y'all know what's going on and what's at stake. The website has a trigger warning for every single part that they think might be uncuddly for people. The gist of which is, this is going to be a really hardcore section. It will deal with murder and hideous details of bad things. If y'all are okay with this, click continue. If you don't think you can handle this, click go home. And I respect that they have that on there, because it's not a cuddly topic, but it's an important one.
Awesome. I
Someone
just
already did put that in the
chat.
chat a while ago, and after I had sort of asked the question to Marisa, I actually went and looked that up, and it turns out that if you confine it to New York State, there are 3 in the last year. I don't know if you want to do that right now, or you mentioned it's not too cuddly, so
that's 3 too many.
Exactly. The point is, if you wanted to, to go into that, we could, and that's how one way to keep it manageable without spending 3 hours here.
Did you want to mention Harry?
The website.
I'm sorry, there were 2 people talking at once. I couldn't understand either.
Did you want to mention the names if you have the site up, just so you can,
Sure, I can bring that back up. So we have 2 that are listed with location as just New York. It's I hope I'm pronouncing this right, is Tdor Liban, and then Michelle S. Tario, and then one in Albany. Struggling to pronounce this right. I think it's Chanelica Yala Dior Hemingway.
And I'll say that the ones that say New York is because that's somewhere in the New York City, Manhattan area. They basically list each case by what city or town that happened in. So instead of that just being somewhere in New York, no, that's usually the general NYC Manhattan area. And the thing is, while this stuff can unfortunately happen just about anywhere, there are 3 states that are unfortunately the top 3 where this stuff happens. We are number 2, Texas is number 3, and California is in the lead, unfortunately. The same way that we get reports from just about every country on earth when this stuff happens, the 3 leaders, unfortunately, are Brazil, Mexico, and Colombia. And I believe Brazil just had a very right-wing dictator kind of president get kicked out in what was like the first, I think, legal election in a while. I'm hoping that this guy's successor will do everything possible to make Brazil less a scary country for trans people.
Absolutely. Harry, thank you for that question. Cynthia, thank you for expanding upon that information as well.
Mm-hmm.
I have a quick question. I don't know if anybody else has one before. If anybody else want to jump in the audience? I guess not.
You're up, my
So-
friend.
I just say it. I know there's a lot of stuff I've seen about mental health with the trans community. Is this something that, is it from the bullying? Is it from the hormonal stuff? Is there something that we could do about this, like that we could fix? Like, I've seen the suicide rates are up. Like, I know that you guys go through hell. I hate to say it. A lot of people are not understanding. Is it a mental health crisis? Is it something that it's more than just trans, it's mental health also? Is it something that, the government needs to be involved with, or something that's I'm not right? Or how do we solve this issue of the suicides and the bullying issues, and that almost like a PTSD issue? You go through so much traumatic stuff. I worked with a woman in Brightwood, Long Island here. Amazing mother, who is fighting for her daughter right now. Her daughter passed away. I think it's about a year now. Her name is Bernice Simmons. She was a transgender woman in Brentwood, New York, who was bullied beyond, like, just nonstop in that district. And that district is known for the teachers don't understand how to handle it. They don't. They couldn't handle the situation. They were awful with it. They kind of blew it off. The mother went there, activists went there. They didn't know how to handle it. And this young lady who was in high school had an aneurysm due to the stress and issues she went through from the bullying, and passed away as like a 17, 18-year-old young girl. It was awful. And this is where I reached out to Ashley about who I could talk to approach and get some help for this mother who lost her young kid. I hate to say it, I'm not a father. I don't have any kids yet, but I think the worst thing in the world is losing a kid. Like, when if your kid is dying before you are, there's something wrong. It's medically, it's could be mental issues or whatever, but like, that's got to be an awful feeling as a parent. It's an awful thing. And this woman lost it because she was bullied. She was stressed. She was also had some other issues, but the stress pushed her over the top. She tried committing suicide multiple times. She had, scars up and down her wrist. It was an awful situation. And Ashley put me in touch with an organization, a nonprofit organization, for a wonderful woman. And she started working with on how to handle the situation. They work with the schools on teaching the principals and the superintendents and the teachers on how to handle this, but like, not every school district has this access, or they don't use this access that Ashley gave me. How do we get this out more? Like, I hate to see this mental abuse and this physical abuse that they're dealing with. This poor girl's getting beat up physically and mentally because she was trans. So how do we approach getting the school districts to learn and to handle this type of situation? So like nonprofits or like how do we do this?
Well, the first part of it is that your question about where the higher suicide rate comes from, it comes from the bullying. It comes from being messed with by some peers. It comes from not feeling there are people you can reach out to. It comes from school districts not having explicit policies or good coverage. I went to school in Brentwood. I graduated Brentwood High School in '94. I got bullied. It was really messed up and it was horrible. And I did feel suicidal at times as a teen. I was lucky because I had some good teachers that reached out to me, and I was lucky because I had some good friends, many of whom became my bodyguards, but that shouldn't have been the situation. And I was hoping to hear tonight that since I've been out of high school for 28 years now, that district would have gotten better.
Yeah.
But it sounds like there's at least as much, if not more, work to be done than is now with that particular district. Now, the thing is, the laws of New York State are supposed to address this. Gender Expression Non-Discrimination Act, Dignity for All Students Act. The problem is that they only say that districts should address this. They don't say what to do. It's like the Nike ad that says to just do it. There is a bill that's unfortunately been rotting in the state Senate and Assembly since about 2015-16. It doesn't have a catchy name. It doesn't have a cute acronym, but it basically says that trans school children from pre-K to end of high school need to be empowered, need to be protected. Schools need to do more one-on-one work, more empowerment work, that bullies need to be punished in an explicit way. And that bill needs to become law. It should not be allowed to rot in committee one more minute. As of January, I'm going to be bugging the living hell out of all the state senators and assembly people till it sees light of day. There is so much work that can be done, though, approaching educators, approaching principals and district leaders. There are nonprofits that are working on this. There are groups that work on this. The Trans Resource Center of Long Island, which is trcli.org. I spent 2 years as a crisis and intervention and suicide prevention phone operator on the Trans Lifeline, translifeline.org. It's one of two projects that came about because a trans teen was bullied into suicide by pretty much her whole town in Ohio, Wheeler Alcorn. And two projects resulted from this. One is Trans Lifeline. The other is, I don't know Miley Cyrus's current gender identification, but at that point, Miley came out as some type of non-binary or genderqueer, depending on which news report or celebrity site you were looking at, and formed another thing called the Happy Hippie House. I think we need to reach out to everyone we can and make sure that people know that bullying is bad and shouldn't happen. Because situations like you described should not still be happening in nearly 2023.
Yeah.
Very true.
I reached out to the Human Rights Campaign. That was the name of the organization that really stepped up, and a woman named Cheryl Green, who's the runner of the organization, was absolutely amazing. So I got multiple Zoom meetings with me to work with this woman to reach the school district, and like we need that everywhere. That needs to be like statewide or countrywide to educate our instructors on how to handle this. They don't understand it. They can't handle it. That's a problem.
Absolutely.
It,
Very
it,
true.
it comes down to several things, and you kind of raised a few questions. The first, trans mental health, there's a few problems. One, a lot of issues around mental health do come from lack of acceptance. It's not just bullying, it's being disowned by your family and friends and the people who are supposed to love you. It's finding that you don't fit in. It's also a lack of help. We as a country don't have enough mental health resources available for our population. It's not easy to find somebody who you can talk to and trust. It's very difficult. So there's a few layers to this, but what it comes down to is how do we lower that trans suicide rate that is so astronomically high? Acceptance, love. I accept you and I love you as a human being, and I'm going to treat you with dignity and respect because you are a human being. And that alone, having a, especially when it comes to younger people, children, trans children, the suicide rates drop tremendously by just having one person in their lives who accepts them for who they are, uses their chosen name and pronouns. All it takes is one person to show you compassion and love. So how do we fix this? Education, compassion, love. We have to do better at teaching each other, and we need people to stand up. It can't just be the trans community. There's not enough of us. Everybody has to stand up and say, it's not okay to treat people like that. It's not okay to hurt people. We all have the responsibility to stand up and speak out against it. And eventually, when the majority of people start doing that, this starts becoming less of a problem, and it starts becoming more accepted in our society.
So turning it normal.
Also, legal issues. The legal issue is we need full equality under the law. In New York State, we have pretty decent laws, so that one still needs passage. The thing is, there are other states that have gone backward on this. I cry every time I think about, is it Florida, I think, where the governor actually signed a law that pretty much says you don't get gender-affirming medical or mental health care if you're a trans youth, that you're not supposed to talk about this stuff in school. No, those are deadly. Those create a climate of suicide, and I cannot believe that we still have municipalities and states that are trying to pass these things in practically 2023. That kind of stuff needs to be shut down because we need people across the board, across the country, to be able to say that if they're trans, to be able to say, I'm trans, and be treated as the gender they know themselves to be. We have bills in Congress that haven't gotten any traction to see a vote yet, like the Equality Act. Even the Freedom of Marriage Act, I think, is all the ones that are trying to take Supreme Court decisions like Bostock and Obergefell and put them in cemented law in case the Supreme Court does the same thing to those that it did to Rose over the last couple months. And these are things that the Green Party cares deeply about, is that we want politicians to do right by the trans community. It's in our platform. If you go to gpus.org and go to the platform, it says we support people's right to be whatever gender they are. That includes trans affirming, non-binary affirming, intersex affirming. It's in our platform.
Wonderful. And we need to push it.
There's a catch and balance to this, and I'm going to play devil's advocate a little bit on what you said. Laws help temporarily. They are not the solution. People will always break the law. A law is not going to stop anybody from killing me because murder is already illegal. A law is not going to stop somebody from harassing me because harassment is already illegal. When we look at these things, and the perspective that I look at is, could the Equality Act help? Temporarily, yeah, we need the protection now because we're so vulnerable. But in the long run, it might hurt us more than it helps us, because it doesn't give us an opportunity to educate people. It doesn't give us an opportunity to change minds. What we really need to have happen is not the Equality Act, but we need to have what was passed as civil rights legislation updated, but not only updated for the US Code, but constitutionally protected. It needs to be a constitutional amendment that the government cannot discriminate against people based on these things, because the government is one of the #1 problems when it comes to this. It's the government attacking us. It's the government taking away our rights, and it's the government enabling the bullies to come after us. They're the ones that need to be restricted, And the only way we do that is with constitutional amendments, not laws. I don't trust the politicians and I don't trust the courts to uphold those laws. But if we make it a constitutional amendment, they don't have a choice. And that's really where we need to get to solve the problem.
I think an amendment would help on many of this. And I do agree that education is what we need, and people knowing how to have their minds be reached by all this stuff. But I also feel that we should have some legal system that redresses things, that treats people as human beings rather than saying that trans people are less than. We shouldn't be having states ban people from being out as trans as kids. We shouldn't have any, people shouldn't be allowed to kick you out of their business, out of their legislative hall, out of anything. People should have equal rights, regardless of being cis or trans or whatever. So I feel that, yes,
Yeah.
we need more social acceptance and awareness, but we also need equality across the board, everywhere, legal, political, also social. We need to have everything worked on, and it's such a big job. We do need allies, and that's why the heck we're doing something like tonight.
Absolutely. And with that, I can't thank you all enough. I mean, the points that were made tonight, the discussions that were had, the honesty, the vulnerability, and the wonderful ideas to Artie, Ashley, Cynthia, and I know CJ had some technical issues at the end. Your invaluable wisdom, sharing your stories with us. It's so important because the work you do and who you are will help somebody. It will. We don't know who. It might be somebody we don't know, but it will help somebody. So thank you so very much for taking the time to be here this evening. As Artie had mentioned earlier, this will be posted. It'll be posted online, the Green Party's website, Libertarian, Suffolk County Libertarian website, social medias. Please feel free to share once we have it posted. And again, thank you for what you're doing, because you're making the world a better place. So we're grateful to you. We're grateful for your time tonight. And if there's anything that we can do or information in the future you want us to share about things you are doing, please feel free to send them our way, and we will do our due diligence to get the word out to help you as you do the work that you continue to do. So thank you very much. And I think to end the theme
coming out.
Absolutely. And the theme that we learned tonight is we're all human beings, and that's what so often gets overlooked, and that's what we need to fix. So thank you for driving that message home. Such a simple message that can do so much if people just stop to listen to it. So thank you. Have a great night. Please stay safe and stay well, and we will speak with you soon. We appreciate you.
Yes, but real quick, listen, I'm proud of all you guys. Like the things you've done and coming out and being who you are, wonderful. Keep it up, and there's people to support you. We're here to support you. There is people. We're not all these people you see on Facebook and Twitter. There is people like me, who's that typical white male who will support you, is behind you 100%. And Marisa, who's also a white female who will support you. And we're here, and we want to learn more, and we want to be there for you, and we will do anything we can to help you guys. And I'm really proud of you guys, and I love hearing the stories, and I love learning more. And I think a lot of us can really learn from this. You guys
Absolutely.
are amazing. I appreciate you guys for coming out today.
Thank you all.
Thank you guys. Have a wonderful night.
Good night.
Hey, everybody. Be well. Have a great night. Thank you again.
Can I just add one thing before we sign off?
Please.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Well, two things really. First, if you're out there watching this and you don't know who any of us are, or you do know who any of us are, I want you to understand something that's really important. You matter as a person. You belong here. You are loved. And you have a place on this earth. You can make a difference. Number two, because we are talking about political parties being involved in this, and as an elected official, I'm going to make something really clear. If you don't like what your elected officials are doing, run for office. We can win. We can't allow groups of other people and put the responsibility on them to stand up and fight for us. We have to do it ourselves. So if you want equal rights, if you want protections, if you want to make a difference in your community from a legislative standpoint, we have to do it together. It's up to us to get involved and be involved and run for office. We can't trust anyone else to do it for us. It's up to us to do it. So make sure you do it. And with that, I just want to say thank you so much for inviting me and allowing me to be a part of this. It was so amazing to hear from so many different people. And I just want to say, I love you all. Thank you.
Love you, Ashley.
Same to you, my
One thing I
friend.
hear in a
Thank
lot of
you so
social justice work over and over again is nothing about us without us. The people who are most affected need to be the ones in the driver's seat, need to be leading the efforts to fix it, because nobody understands the problem better than the people who are hurt by it.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you so much, you guys, for attending. This was amazing tonight. Like,
Yeah.
eye-opening.
Thank
It
you
was
for being
great.
here. Thank you for what you do,
Yeah,
and thank you for
everyone.
being exactly who you are.
Don't change.
Please don't. Please don't.
Have a wonderful
with
night, and
that-
thank you.
Absolutely. Because I know we can talk forever because there's so many good things, but we will do this again. We'll have to. But thank you all. Thank you for putting up with my voice, which is lacking tonight. And
Yeah,
just keep
get better
doing you.
soon, Marissa. Need you to
Thank you, my
knock down
friend.
Doggy. You are too awesome.
Getting
Good
some
night.
tea after this.
Yeah, please
Thank you
do.
all again.
Guidance.
Have a
Thank
great
you.
night, everybody.
Great night,
Go
guys.
rest
Good night.
tonight.